Howdy y'all, this is AR Cavley. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to continue our forbidden adventures in the Forbidden Lands as Lennox and Zell continue to tromp their way through the mires and quagmires and floods of Ravensland. We'll just get right into it. Last time they survived some flooding, ran away, and Lennox picked up some tips and tricks on survival. Spent those experience points. As we start our new hex procedure, new travel procedure from the Book of Beasts. In the morning, we shuffle the die, and we'll do that later. In just a second, we'll go slightly out of order. So counting experience points, they didn't do anything much extraordinary. They don't get the XP for just being there, but they did travel through at least one hex. No sights, no monsters. And I guess I could find a situation to where if someone was clever and they defeated, quote unquote, a monster by escaping or tricking it or somehow manipulating the situation so that they got the upper hand on the monster, especially with a peddler, or some kind of more social minded character like a bard or minstrel or whatever, then I can see a situation where I might, but the Minotaur just wasn't interested in them, and they ran away again. Brave Sir Lennox ran away. Boldly he ran away. um, so just the one experience point for Lennox. Oops. All right, so next, pardon me. Next, roll d6 3 times for the weather. I just decided to turn off the dice because it made such a noise. It made such a mess on the screen. 4, 4, and 4. I think that is pretty much no effect, plain weather, just normal, average, everyday weather. Yes, so there's a slight breeze, no rain, and the temperature is pleasant enough. All right, then let's get to traveling. I'm gonna zoom in on these guys here. All right. Assign resolve tasks. Okay, so that says, as usual, Zell is going to be acting as the Pathfinder, and Lennox, even though he now has his new survival skill, he's still better at scouting because he has scouting and he has his fancy, dancy spy scope, telescope. All right, so perform new hex procedure. Whenever you enter a new hex, draw a card and consult the table below. So first thing we need to do is figure out what happens. And probably figure out where they want to go. I think... Yeah, so I think what they'll do is they will go into this next hex. They don't necessarily want to go hiding into the forest, though. They will continue to follow along the river for that first hex. And then from there, I think they will, I'll call all those hills, I guess. They don't want to go into the forest itself, so they'll kind of skirt the edge as they make their way north. Now, they're getting to the point to where they kind of need to figure out where this thing is. They have a general idea. So either they need to find somebody they can get some clues from, or I, as the friendly game master, need to give them something. You know, maybe a lore roll, or if things get desperate enough, maybe Lady Sif, the druid who's leading the village, maybe she sends a bird with, I don't know, some kind of extra hint or something. You know, speak, dumbass, and enter. You know, so, something like that to get them to where they need to go. But first things first, Zell will lead the way. I can't remember, and I can't remember if I rolled food or water, um, or not. Well, I won't worry about water since they're by the river anyway. But okay, well, I can't remember if I did or not. I'll say I did. I'll just give myself some credit, and because I don't want to slow things up right off the bat. All right, so one survival, so that's good. So he is able to find a path along the river, in between the river and the edge of the forest. The forest is looking pretty dark. It's not really a place they want to go. And as Lennox has shown time and time again, he's not interested in any kind of conflict. But for each time we enter a hex, so that's the morning. And okay, let's determine to see what happens whenever you're in a hex. Draw a card, consult the table below. Oh, and I do need to shuffle. Five of spades, or six, sorry, six of spades. So that's going to be a encounter roll out of the Book of Beasts. Book of Beasts, black. BBB. All right, Lennox, let's give us a D6 roll, or D66 roll here, please.
These two dice, Dungeon Master, do I roll?
Oh, okay. A 6 and a 5. That is definitely going to be some kind of encounter. Let's see. Now, as we are there, so I need to decide. They're following the coast for most of the day, so I think we'll leave it. We'll use that. Random encounters. Okay, Quagmire Lake, mountains. Okay, so there's not really like a riverside. I could do lake, but I think that's a bit different. The pretty much the surrounding area is hills, and since they are trying to avoid the forest, and I think the plains, it looks like the plains have kind of been left behind. It's the river seems to be going through the hills mostly. So I'm going to use the hills encounter with a 6-5 is number 34. The Jolly Gravediggers. All right, well, let's see what that one has to say. The wind carries a cheerful tune from a place nearby. Someone is singing out there with more enthusiasm than skill. Soon you hear that it is coming from a small choir of merry but less than musical voices. The few words you can make out, are about goblin feats and achievements. Uh-oh. The sound draws closer, and you soon notice three jolly goblins strutting through the terrain. They are carrying large spades and fully stuffed backpacks, but seem unequipped for combat. Their black eyes gaze expectantly at the horizon as they croak out their heroic songs about bold goblins rescuing careless halflings from wolves' jaws. Okay, so I'm going to have Lennox. I'm going to give him his scouting role to see. I don't know what the rest of the encounter entails yet, just that there's some goblins. And also, I kind of have to remember that goblins in this particular setting are a character race. So there are, regular relations. They're not just, they come out of they're probably still goblins, but there are regular relations that don't necessarily involve poking holes at them, poking holes in them with spears right off the bat. So we'll give him a scouting roll, and then his he gets 2 for his scope. His telescope. Okay, so 2 successes, so that's good. So he notices them. We'll say he notices them even before they hear the singing. He notices movement. Let's see what the rest of the actual encounter reads. The adventurers have run into the goblin siblings Plump, Colk, and Hecate, or Hecate. We'll say Hecate. Hecate? Hecate, who are on their way to a nearby village to seek employment as gravediggers. They are cheerful, unafraid, and outgoing. So Lennox sees them, and they do this. He sees them through his scope. He sees them walking, presumably the village or whatever they're heading for. Resides in the hills, or maybe they're coming out of the hills and planning on heading down the river somewhere where there's maybe a greater chance of there being some village that our heroes have not come across yet. He sees them in the scope. He pulls them to a stop, and he says, "There's 3 goblins. Yeah, they don't look like they're up to anything, or at least they're not. They're not raiding. Looks like they're just carrying some tools. Hmm. We'll get a little closer." So they get close enough to where the wind starts to carry the cheerful tune. I'm not going to worry about stealth rolls or anything at this point, since they're not looking to do an ambush. Okay, so if approached, let's see. To be honest, this doesn't. He doesn't really think that they would know anything about elves, about ancient elvish legends. But I think as a way to, if I were to play the character straight Lennox, he just he wouldn't talk to anybody that he didn't have to. But they are at the point to where they need to start trying to find things out. So they're going to he gets ahead of them. He kind of can see the path that they're walking to, and so they wait for the goblins to come down, and they're sitting there, hands off of weapons, looking as as peaceful as possible. And really, it's two humans and a horse, which could, for little goblin folk, could certainly be a little threatening. And the other, I want to. Well, I don't want him just because it would be in character. I don't want Lennox to just avoid all of these all of these encounters, if for no other reason than to show a little respect and love to the people who wrote up this fine supplement by ignoring everything. I'm, oh goodness, I am that player. I'm that player that refuses to do what the GM has planned out. All right, well, I'll keep that in mind in the future. Actually, I've never really had too much of a problem with players avoiding main storylines if it made sense. It was, you know, but I digress. Hail, because that's what everyone says in these, right? Is hail. Uh, now the goblins, the Lennox has kept everyone out in the open just so the goblins aren't super surprised. He gives them enough time to get close to them, um, so it doesn't look like they're being surprised. The singing stops, and the um, goblins pull up short. They look at the humans and their big warhorse, which is probably more threatening than than either one of the humans before them. And Lennox puts on his best merchant smile, his best peddler smile, and says, "Hail, goblins! We mean you no harm. I'm just a poor peddler, and my man, and my once mighty horse that now has been relegated to hauling bits of junk across Raven's Land." All right, let's for grins, let's go ahead and we'll see how well Lennox comes off. He's not really trying to manipulate them or anything at this point. Um, but we'll just roll to kind of see, because he's trying to come off friendly and get them to trust him. Oof. All right. Well, that's maybe a good um, a good opportunity to get some to get some willpower. Mm, yeah, why not? Why not? So we'll take our 2 hits to empathy, and then make another roll here. Okay, great. So he pushes himself. He reaches down to get that to pull forth that Ed Brimley charm. The goblins look at each other, look up and down the humans as Lennox sits there, giving him that hey buddy smile, and they run forward. Well, they don't run forward, but they come forward and uh, say, well, what are their names? One of the three steps forward and he says, "I'm Culk. It's nice to meet you." He's the uh, he seems to be taking the lead. "This is my friend Plump, and this is Hecate." And Hecate is a female. She has I guess, whatever the female accoutrement for goblins are. And they decide it's a little early for lunch, but they pause and chat. And since he was successful in the manipulation, well, now that was just to charm them to talk to them. So he has them. Uh, they talk about their plans, and as they're chit chatting, Lennox gets them to talk first, and they explain how they are. They set up the goblins set up a fire, and they offer them some. They set up a little fire, and they have some mead. And according to here, they offer roasted squirrel and freshly brewed mead. So who doesn't like that? So Lennox takes of that, and they're sitting there chomping on the squirrel meat. They talk about the goblins talk about their job to a nearby village to look as gravediggers. They're very friendly and um, seem to be good goblins. Um, Hecate offers that um, I take care of the finances for this little business venture. I keep track of the coins. Kolk, he doesn't have enough fingers to count high enough. And they all laugh in their goblin-y laugh. And I always picture like gremlins from the old movies. And he holds up one hand that's missing two fingers. It's true. It's true. You just can't get drunk and go out and chop wood. Not a good idea. And Hecate explains that she's good with the undead, and um, that's part of how why they're offering their services as gravediggers, because they can they know how to handle the restless dead. And Zell he pipes up and he says, I've I've never been good with them. They give me the creeps. I fear them. I fear to become that after I die." Well, Hecate pulls out an old family heirloom, which she shows off after they've been drinking for a little while. And it's a mummified goblin finger with a long claw at the end. "This belonged to my great grandmother. She was a respected necromancer of the Wormcrawler clan." Let's see, and it says it's their most prized possession. And it gives an option to buying that, but Zell, well, if it is a something that helps with that, but they are going to a place that's undead. Unfortunately, Lennox is not equipped to really know that if it's a true item or not. So that lets you speak to the undead? Lets you talk to them? Oh, yes. It's very handy. A lot of times the poor wanderers don't really know how to speak well. It makes it very easy to appease them and get them to be good undead. Plump, eating eating the majority of these squirrel snacks, says, they're quite friendly when you get to know them, you know. Oh, yes. But what's even more strange is you're only used to seeing your own kind. Well, more than likely. But when you start speaking to the undead of other races, now that's creepy. Imagine walking through a graveyard of goblin undead. Zell can't help but um, hold his hands up to the sky in uh, a prayer of protection to a quick prayer of protection to his fire god. That does sound creepy. Say you wouldn't be interested in maybe selling that, would you? I know it helps you, but you're mostly grave diggers, right? So my friend and I, we are actually, well, we're going someplace where there's going to be a lot of undead if the tales are true. So Lennox tries to put on his charm again. And let's see. So it's a opposed roll manipulation versus Hekate's insight. Okay. So she's 2 and 2. Now his empathy is damaged, but uh, let's see. I'm gonna take a quick gander at those human kin talents here, real quick, just to refresh myself. All right, so he's going to spend one willpower to use his adaptive. He's down to 5. He's going to spend a willpower to use his adaptive kin talent, and he's going to make an insight. He's going to use his. He's going to make it an insight versus insight roll. By, of course, well, it kind of makes sense. Instead of manipulating necessarily straight up, he's going to use his insight. He knows that she's proud of her great grandmother's power, and he's going to really play up on that because he knows he has that insight that it's important to her. So he's going to play up on that and kind of, well, manipulate using the insight skill instead. All right, so I'll just use this for her stats. So 2 and 2. So this first roll is for Hecate the Goblin. Her insight. All right, so she has 1. She got 1 success. And let's see how he does. Mm. All right. I think he's gonna try to push that. I think. Had to refresh my memory real quick on the one for the skill die. I know it does not a skull, so it doesn't cause a harm or anything, a bane or whatever if you fail. But I wasn't exactly sure if I could re-roll it, if I could push it. But you can push ones for skill dice. Okay, so one success. Uh, let me well, let me verify. I think he probably had to get more successes. Okay, I had to sort of dig through the book here for a couple minutes, which fortunately you did not have to suffer suffer along with due to the magic of the pause button. The I remembered as I was making the rolls that for manipulation, he gets a bonus for his reputation. He has a reputation of 1 because he was adult, and the skill description and the manipulate opposed roll position says keep in mind the bargaining position, and so I was looking for that because I remember finding it. Unfortunately, the book, when it pulls up the stuff, it calls it negotiating position, so I had a little bit of time or had a bit of a hard time finding that out, and I was going to roll that uh, roll one extra die his uh, for his reputation. But when I looked at the negotiation positions, that would give him +1, but asking for something valuable or dangerous. Now, he definitely that finger is definitely valuable to Hecate, so that's going to be a no-go. That's a very tempting offer, human, but I simply couldn't. Not to mention the fact that her spirit would drive me mad. Every night she would visit me asking me what I did with her finger. How could I do such a dishonorable thing? Okay, so he he accepts that you don't always win the bargaining, but he got a success, so it wasn't she doesn't get offended or angry. In fact, she kind of shows a little bit of pride that this human peddler would want the desiccated finger of her great grandmother, but she's not willing to part with it, and he's not even 100% sure of its efficacy, so he's not going to. Even though it definitely does sound like something that would be useful where they're going, he doesn't even know. She may be a charlatan. Of course, if she were, then she would sell it anyway. But he's not really the type to go ambushing and robbing people like that, especially when they've been so nice and shared their little squirrel snacks. So, uh, but he's going to bring up the legend of the ancient elven princess who was trapped in the tower and used the her crystal pine cone that she crafted. So we're going to jump back to our oracles. Let's see. I'm going to say that it's. I'm going to say that it's unlikely. I'm going to use the playing card oracle, the yes no oracle. I'm going to say it's highly unlikely that they know, but they obviously travel and they have some experience with dealing with the undead. So maybe they have heard of this undead castle. So the way this works is if the odds are unlikely, draw two cards and take the most negative result. So our two cards are going to be eight of diamonds and eight. Okay, so 8 and 8. Do they know? And taking the worst, the okay. So no, we're going to take the black suit because we take the worst of the two, and in this case, it's no. And the higher numbers are more definite. So he breaches the or broaches the idea, the legend, asks if they have heard anything like it, and they say no. And after enjoying their meat and their snacks and sharing some body goblin jokes, they go on their way, and so do Lennox and Zell. Let's see. They still don't. They still don't really want to go into the forest, so they're going to skirt the forest. And I guess basically they'll be coming into this next hex. I think this is. Let's see. I think I'm going to call this open plains land. It kind of looks like from the map I'm looking at, it looks like that's a bit more open than hill. Yeah, we'll call that open land. Hazel leads the way. All right, so he does not get a success. Let's see if we run into let's see if we get uh another storm. What's wrong book? Let's see. Oh, I guess I need to keep track of going through uh, what type of terrain going through, whether it's open or difficult. Um, well, I kind of already went there, so we'll say that their last one was open, so they'll get their two for the morning exercise or their morning travel. Well, depending on what get in his failure roll. Leading the way, mishap. 2 and a 5. Lost. You realize that you have walked in a circle. You are lost and won't make any progress on the map during this quarter day. Pathfinder must also roll survival successfully to find her way out of the hexagon. A roll can be made once per quarter day. All right, so apparently the open lands has confused our friend Zell so they don't make any more progress in the morning. Let's see if he can find his way out in the afternoon. Come on. All right, so that's good. He's not able to make another hex for the morning, but he's able to find his way out, and he's going to move on, move on up after they break for lunch. And I guess, let's see, so now he's got trees and hills going up. So we'll say that this is going to be difficult as they're traveling through here. So this hex, they can only go one hex. For the second part of the day. So now we roll again as he leads the way. Although I guess possibly I should have the main PC roll now that he has the skill, but I'll just keep doing what I have been doing. Okay, and another failure from Zell as he's trying to pick his way between now having north and not having the river to follow, now having to follow the distant forest, the the line of trees, and having to now travel through a bit rougher space. Let's see what his failure takes the form of. 4-4. A downpour. A downpour. Another downpour. All right. Well, apparently, Zell has this has this Charlie Brown like cloud just hovering over his head that randomly turns on once or twice every day. Let's see. I don't think we're in snowstorm area yet. Although to be honest, I'm not familiar enough with how that thing breaks down, but it seemed to be more of a summery slash springy time, so we'll just go with more rain. All right, so no passage for that quarter of the day, or no further passage. Although yeah, I mean we were pretty much done moving anyway. But we get in there, we get into the hex, and the downpour comes again. Now we're in hills though, so we have to look out even more for flash floods. All right, so must roll for the effects of cold. And like last time, I'll just roll for Lennox. That is going to be a endurance roll, and they have a blanket, which gives them a +1 equipment. He's not really liking this getting soaked every every day aspect as the rain comes again, and he starts grumbling. Lennox starts grumbling about wishing he were back in Cold Breach and back in his little dusty hut where he at least could stay dry and build a fire. All right. Well, thanks to the blanket, They manage to not get cold. And let's head over to our Book of Beasts and let's take a look at our Wilderness Oracle and let's see if there's anything nearby. Let's see if there's anything nearby that we could try to find shelter in. So that's just going to be a card. Seven of Diamonds in the Hills. Oh, an isolated dwelling. So it doesn't say abandoned, it just says isolated. So he's going to go up and he's going to knock, and as the rain is drenching them, they're still managing to keep warm. Let's see who is inside. What kind of people are living there in this isolated dwelling? Four of Diamonds. So it's an Asleen. So that's good. They may manage to get a little help from because of uh, Zell's Asleen connection. And let's see how helpful or hazardous this dwelling is, because it could be some kind of bandit hideout, and they're just rushing up to try to get out of this storm because they're tired of getting wet. Hazardous or helpful? Let's see. What are we? Three of Spades. Okay, so they're neutral, whoever it is. So this, you know what? I think there's an oracle in here about what kind of person it is. Well, there's some names. All right, so the table I was looking for was in the actually the Game Master's Guide, the NPC. So let's see what kind of person we got there. A 5 and a 1. Oh, an assassin. Hmm. That's not great. um, but he's neutral. He's probably okay. So he's an assassin. He's probably not going to say, "Hi, my name's Bob the Assassin." So let's see what his cover is. Something besides assassin. 6'2". Occultist. Right, I'm not really an assassin. I'm just a cultist. No, you're looking for the wrong guy. um, although, okay, so this person, this NPC, and I don't even know if anything will come of it. He's really an assassin, but his isolated dwelling, I think that leads me to a situation to where he is he's in the woods pretending to be some kind of like a religious hermit or something. That actually kind of makes sense. That makes sense. Well, for finding assassins in the in isolated settlements. All right, and let's use this table. We'll roll up a characteristic too. 3, 5. All right, so he's a constantly smiling assassin pretending to be a cultist, living in an isolated shack out in the out in the middle of the wilderness. And let's see what our other quirk is. We'll generate a quirk here as well. 5-4. He has doubts. Well, okay. Um, all right. Well, he has doubts, and you know what? Let's. There are a couple of other tables here. I don't even know that we need to make all this information about the NPCs. All right. Well, we'll come up with a name. All right. Jack of clubs. Okay, so it's a male named Pillow. Or I wonder if that should be Peo. Pillow. We'll say Pillow. All right, so let me just jot him down in our notes. He just sounds like an interesting fellow, even if all we do is sleep in the hut. All right, so hello, our assassin hermit holy man with doubts. And what are those doubts? Well, he probably doubts that these people just randomly came across his secret safe house in the in the mountains. He has doubts whether he's living a good life. Maybe the faking of being a holy man of some kind, maybe it has him reconsidering his life choices of being an assassin. We're going to use our danger oracle, helpful hazardous oracle. How is he going to interact with them? Let's see. Oh, wait a second. I already did that, didn't I? I think I already did. And the person was, yes, I did already. So that person's neutral. Whoops. All right, so he's neutral, and he does come to the door once um, once Lennox pounds on the door. And it's a small place. It's a small hut, but it's not so small that a couple other people couldn't curl up next to whatever fire is going inside. Yes, can I help you? Can we take shelter from the storm? We're getting drenched out here. It's freezing. We'll pay. We'll pay uh, for just letting us come in and get warm by your fire. Hmm. The holy man, the hermit, looks into the sky past them, peeking up out the door, and he says, "It seems this is probably going to last until nightfall. 1 silver each, and one for your horse, which you can tie outside. I don't have a proper stable, but I do have uh, a little awning out back that I use to uh, store the wood. He can fit mostly under that and be relatively safe and dry." And he hands over the coins. Does Lennox. And they gratefully come in. He hangs the He hangs their wet blanket close to the little fire, and they get to chit chatting. The hermit doesn't seem particularly talkative, but old Lennox is his sixth sense. It's not screaming. It's not even quite tingling, but it's kind of bumping around in the trunk a little bit. So he is a little nervous. There's something about this guy. Maybe it's just because he lives off on his own, and he's heard stories of those strange mountain men who eat travelers at night. Um, I'm we're getting at the hour point, and even though this is an interesting person, um, I don't think I don't necessarily see anything adventuresome happening. Although Lennox does his sense he was only going to go he was going to sleep with one eye open, but their second part of the afternoon they're just going to rest and then sleep, and I think that will get Lennox. So the first half, because Lennox couldn't fully rest, he would only get one back, and the second overnight as they're sleeping, he will get the other back, but he really keeps one eye open on this guy. But as they're talking, the subject of the legend comes up. Lennox is going to see if this guy knows anything. Um, I'm going to say it's probably unlikely just because he's an assassin, not really necessarily big on lore, but he does play a holy man on TV, so we'll see. Does he know anything about the location? That's one of the things I find helpful using the oracles. Be sure you're specifying the yes no question if that's what you're looking for. Does he know anything about this place that they're looking for? All right, seven of clubs, so that's pretty no. Jack of hearts, that would be somewhat helpful. Oops, there we go. So yes, but with some complication versus a definitive no. Hmm. So the complication could cause something, but I think at this point it is probably more reasonable that he doesn't. So they discuss, they dry off, and they are ready to go the next day. I'm not because it's a downpour because there's plenty of available water. I'm not going to have them roll for water, but I will have them roll for food because the hermit slash assassin is not willing to part with anything he has there in his remote place. All right, so Lennox eats some rations, and he still has rations, and so does Zell. So they manage to perhaps because they have the fire to help heat up their food or whatever. Their food is filling and lasts them until the morning where they when they wake up unassassinated and carry on through the sodden Ravens lands. All right. Hope you enjoyed. It's good to have you along and happy gaming.